Good morning and welcome to Coach's Corner. I'm Braxton Gray, joined alongside Kaz Zinal and, of course, Coach John Everingham. Kaz, how you doing this morning?
Hey, I'm alive. It's a good day.
You know, we've had this wonderful opportunity to broadcast these games, and every game seems to just be so much more fun to broadcast. They're always interesting and just seem to keep us on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, interesting is the right word. I would say cardiac problems for me, but they are all exciting, and I just love the way Everingham handles this team, and the team is such a good group of kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Coach Everingham, let's go ahead and get your input on this. We're going to talk first about the Bethany Christian game, and as you recall, you defeated Bethany Christian 41-23. But in my eyes, and fans see it's a big win, but it necessarily wasn't your best game you guys played. You guys were really sloppy with the ball and just really couldn't hit your shots.
Yeah, it's I think I don't know if you got a better saying for the shoes on the other foot or
the foot on the other shoe.
Yeah,
there.
the foot's on the other shoe. But it's a little different for us. Going into games where we're favored and even heavily favored. There's a different type of pressure that you face as a team. You really got to guard against playing passive, and you just really need to attack and do the things that got us to where we're at. So we really came out against Bethany, and we were very active. I think it was 22-2 or
yeah,
something
22-2 at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, so I thought we came out ready to play. We were very active on the defensive end. We forced them into some mistakes. We finished the transition points on the other end, and unfortunately, we kind of took our foot off the gas just a little bit. And there's some other factors that people don't really understand the reason why kind of that happens to us, because you can go back to the West Noble game. We were up 17-6, and they kind of came back, and several other games, throughout the season. And then I know we'll talk about it, but even last night at Concord, kind of the same story. So usually when something happens over and over and over again, there's a reason for it. And so I think there are some reasons, and we can talk about that just a little bit. But in the Bethany game in particular, I thought we did just kind of take our foot off the gas. It had nothing to do with lack of depth or some of the things like that, but it just really, we didn't play with the quite same intensity. We just thought the game was over after it was 22-2. But a credit to Bethany, they really hung in there. I think they actually even beat us the last three quarters. So if it wasn't for that good start, we would have had our hands full from the very beginning.
Yeah, actually they defeated you scoring wise in the second and third quarter, but you guys did beat them in the third quarter. And Coach, one thing I realized, Austin Miller didn't necessarily have his best game. As we talked about, he's your best player, but on the defensive end, he had a phenomenal game. He shut down Williams with Bethany Christian. He only had 1 point the whole night.
Yeah, and we knew they'd have trouble scoring. And so regardless of some of the ups and downs we had on the offensive end, we were solid on defense. And with Bethany only scoring 23 points and Beck Willems, only having, I think, 1 point on the evening. Obviously, like I said, we get off to a good start, but we did a good job on Beck, and it made his life not real fun, for the whole night, and so we just didn't think they could score enough points, to really make a serious run at us.
Hey, Coach, talk a little bit about your defense. I mean, it's always it would be a good game to go to Vegas. Say, hey, what is Everingham going to do tonight? I mean,
Yeah.
You have a 3-2, you have a man, you have a 1-3-1. Well, how do you decide all that?
Well, I can tell you, here's a funny story.
I want to hear
We were
this.
talking
This is
about
good.
last night at the Elkhart Memorial Coach, and I apologize if I've already said this story, but last night Coach O'Connell and I were watching film and talking to a friend of ours, and the friend says, "What defense are you playing right now?" And I said, "Well, here's the funny thing. Elkhart Memorial Coach, who is a seasoned veteran, guy, and he's a good coach. He said, "What defense are you guys playing?" He goes, "I don't even know what you're doing." He said, "I called my assistant coach on Tuesday, and I said, he was telling his assistant, figure out what defense they're playing." And I need to know by tomorrow. And he says, well, I might need an extra day to figure this one out. So, there is a surprise factor. We mix up our zones and our mans, enough that it's really weird. We're far enough into the season where if somebody was going to figure it out, they would have figured it out by now. And we just keep plugging away. I don't know if it's really a zone or if it's really a man. It's just one of those things. We play really, really hard. We try to take one player out of the game. We have a weapon that we use in Austin Miller. His ability to keep people in front. Not to jinx things, but he's got a chance to get into some record books here at Wawasee with his steals, on the year. So he does an amazing job shutting down people if he stays out of foul trouble. It really depends on personnel. Like tonight, we'll talk later, but Lakeland's got a really good player, scored over 1,000 points, and so Austin will be matched up on him. But at Plymouth we had him on Reichert, and Austin draws a foul, the first possession of the game, and then he can't guard Reichert for the rest of the first half. So it doesn't always work out like you draw it up. So you got to kind of adjust. But we do what we call defensive progression. So we know we're going to start in this. So we plan out exactly what we're going to do to start the game. And then if the team seems to be figuring that out, we'll move into our second and third option. And in some cases, we'll go through the defensive progressions, and then we'll go back to the beginning and kind of start over. Like to start the second half, we may go back to the whatever we're playing, and then the second and third. So we may leave, if we got 5 defenses, we may leave 1 or 2 of those out for the entire game because we know that will not work against this particular team. So we call them, I've never heard the term used before, but we call them defensive progressions. So the kids know we're going to start in this, and then the next one in line is going to be this, and then the next one. So it's not like every possession we're like, hey, do this, next one. So we go through and we'll play a set of possessions in a box and one. We'll play a set of possessions in a 32 and a set of possessions in a man-to-man. And then we work all week in trying to make sure we know what we're doing in that progression, in the defense. So there's kind of a lot that goes into it.
That's what I was going to ask. I mean, how do you, get all these guys to know how to run a 3-2 or how to run? I could do a man, and that's it. After that, I think you've got these guys really well ready for these games.
Yeah, and
defensively.
And if you really, really want to get into some kind of nerdy basketball stuff, there's statistical leaders throughout the state that John Harrell keeps track of, and you got your top offensive teams, your top defensive teams. But when you reduce possessions, if you hold the ball, we've been known to do that in the past to try to stay close to teams. When you hold the ball, there's not enough possessions to score. So your defensive average can be one of the top in the state just because you're reducing the amount of time the other team gets the ball. It's like in football when, Peyton Manning's on the sidelines over there and you don't want him on the field, right?
Yeah.
You run the ball and the clock continues to run. So you control, the possessions of the game. Well, we've done that in the past based on our skill level and our opponents and our schedule and everything like that, just to try to stay close to people. We have not really done that at all this year. So our possessions have increased. And last night, Nate and I were talking, about this, that we have not tried to reduce possessions hardly at all this year. And for the first time, we creep into the statistical leaders in the state of Indiana, and I think we're currently out of 420 or 430 teams, we're ranked about between 40 and 45 in our defensive average. Okay, that's all classes. In Class 3A, out of 110 teams, we're currently ranked 13th.
Oh wow!
In our defensive average, so we're establishing ourselves as a team, and you heard the Plymouth coach talk about it just a little bit after we played them. These guys, their hands are really, really good. So if we continue to work on our positioning, our defensive progressions, and we put our people, you saw Jack Stover last night get a couple steals. Jack and Cameron and Austin out there, who are really good defenders. I think you'll just see us get better and better and better on the defensive end as the season continues to progress.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned one thing. Austin Miller's getting close to the steal record. Do you know exactly how close?
I do.
Or do you not want to share that?
I do know, and I'm not going to share it because I don't want to jinx it.
Okay. I didn't know because I know a lot of fans are asking us, and unfortunately, I don't know exactly where to go to pull up all that basketball stats. So
I really honestly don't want Austin knowing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because I don't want him thinking that he's got to focus on that to set a record or anything. I think if you asked Austin too, he could care less about records,
That's
other
great.
than our wins and losses. And I know specifically, I'll tell you a story real quick. We lost at Goshen last year on a heartbreaker in double overtime, and I know Austin was kind of upset, emotional after that game, and I was just telling him, keep your head up, buddy. It's going to be all right. And he looked at me and he said, I just want to win. And so we've been starving for victories, and they've been few and far between over the last 3 years. And so, just really proud of our guys, how much work they put in. And it's sometimes it's hard to fight the urge to really reflect in the middle of the season when you probably should after the season. But, it's hard not to think about all the time that Austin and Jaden and Ethan, have put in over the last, 3 or 4 years, and they just want to win. They don't care about their records, the individual stuff.
You can really tell that too by the way they work together.
Yeah.
I mean, all of them, especially the big three, have given up easy bunnies to make it somewhat so that somebody else could have an easier bunny.
Yeah.
And that really says a lot to me.
Yeah.
Having been around basketball for at least a week or two.
They honestly don't care. I'm telling you, they don't care. And Austin doesn't care if he scores 2 or 10 or 20. And as long as we win and other guys are doing their job and getting the credit. The other thing that's really amazing about this team, and I'll tell you what, it kind of started last year, is that the togetherness, and I've spoke on this, on the radio show as well, about the bench, the JV.
Yeah.
And you tell me that Ethan Carey and Ray Lenauer and those guys that are sitting there over there on the bench that don't get in a lot, they genuinely are happy for guys when they score. You could go even beyond that. I'm probably taking too long on this subject.
Oh, you're fine.
But you could go beyond that. When Ray scored that basket last night and the whole student
Oh,
section,
my God.
it's like the top came off on the community. It just went poof. And so you could see our guys, they understand, the guys that are on the floor a lot, they understand the amount of work that Ray's put in. And then when he scores that basket at the end of the game, I think the student
amazing.
section and everybody just, they were just really rooting for him. He does the same thing on the bench the whole game, the whole season, in practice and in the locker room. So it was pretty neat to see our guys do that. So I just kind of, making the point that nobody cares about these individual things. We're completely, focused on our team accomplishments.
Kind of makes a big difference in practice, too.
Yeah, it does.
When you have kids that aren't going to play as much, but that work that hard.
Yeah, and final thoughts, Coach. One thing that you really mentioned was Miller, Hardy, and Boyer. And just to me, it shows their true character because you guys haven't necessarily had the best last 3 seasons, but this season they're here and they're still not saying it's all me. I'm the one that built this.
Yeah.
They look back and reflect on everybody else that built the foundation to have this successful season.
Yeah, and you got new guys coming in like Martin Cant and Ray Lenauer that are kind of coming in, and there was some uneasiness about this whole, hey, we've been here for 4 years. These guys are just going to come in and reap the benefits of what we've worked so hard to do. So, and I like that. I like that. It's like this is our thing that we're building and bringing somebody in kind of off the streets, so to speak, from the hallways. That's kind of like sacred, and Ethan Hardy and Austin Miller, especially, and Jaden Boyer, those guys accepted, a couple other seniors that are coming in and playing, and I think that's a credit to them and our other guys that they fit in well in our locker room, and not everybody would have.
Right.
And so just couldn't be more proud of those guys and what they've meant to our program. And I know senior night's coming up. We'll talk about those guys, in a couple weeks, but what is happening right now is because of them, and so their buy-in to, the basketball program, the hard work, maybe the different philosophies. And there are times when you're human and you'd be like, Coach, are you sure about this? Are you sure this is the way we're going to play? All right, let's roll it out, So they bought into everything that we've been preaching to them and teaching. And over the last couple of weeks, I'll tell you before we go to break here, over the last couple of weeks, I can tell you there's been a transformation of those guys. They've taken it one step further, and I think you're seeing it pay benefits on the floor, is they've taken ownership in stepping up and being leaders. And Coach O'Connell and the rest of the coaching staff have kind of stepped back just a little bit and you see them guys doing their thing. You know, the pregame speech last night before the game, we come walking in and we're, doing the coach's thing. You're going to give this. Well, guess who's talking to the whole team? Ray Lanauer. Ray's up there saying, hey, guys, okay, we got to come out. We got to play with great energy. And he's got the scouting report in front of him, and he's sitting over there. He's talking to the whole team, and he's telling the things that I couldn't have said any better myself.
Oh, wow.
So I had a discussion with an official last night. This is really important. I had a discussion with an official last night and was going to get my point across. And usually Nate, Coach O'Connell, will kind of take the huddle. So Nate kind of sees that I'm going to talk to the official about something. Nate turns around, and he was telling me this story last night. He turns around. Guess who's in the huddle, leading the huddle during a timeout?
Ray? No?
Jaden Boyer.
Yeah, see, so it's a
Boyer.
different mix of people.
So
Wow.
2 weeks ago, we talked about these guys like, hey, look, you guys step up. This is your thing. This is your program. This is your team. You guys just do what you feel is right because you've earned the right to be a leader on this team. And, again, it's one of those moments where, you just as a coach, you can't overcoach. You got to step back and let those guys just do your thing. Everything's going great. Do your thing, and it's kind of neat to see that play out.
Coach, I hate to cut you off there, but we're running really short on time, so we're going to take a short break. Coming up next, we'll talk about last night's game against Concord. This is 93.7 FM The Mix. No, this is Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix.
All right.
Welcome back to Coach's Corner once again. Coach, you had a lot to say last game about Bethany, so now we're going to jump in and talk about the Concord game. And I just want to say, before we started, I know we've said this many times on air, but thank you for student council, everybody that came out and supported, and everybody that was there for such a big moment, especially for one of our teachers, Miss Willessa, and she had a great speech. And I just want to say thank you for everybody that showed their support, their love for the community, and it shows that this is bigger than basketball, what we do here. And thanks for everybody that showed up on the community. Coach, you want to add in on that?
Yeah, I think you said it there. I got a chance to go live on the radio yesterday during school, and we had a convocation. And, the Relay for Life and the student council, what the gym looked like last year with the lights and the purple and the T-shirts. And people probably don't understand the amount of time it takes to organize something like that and the amount of volunteers, whether you're students or parents. And then, for the administration here at Wawasee to kind of get behind that, for the students to really, really work hard. I think what the culture here that has been established at Wawasee is when you're going to do something, do it right. And, whether it's our CTE programs, the radio, TV, if you're going to do a TV and if you're going to broadcast the games, you better get the best of the best calling the games like Kaz Zinal, right?
Yeah,
right.
He's definitely one of the best.
You're really hurting there, but other than that, you got a good group.
So, just really proud to be a Warrior last night. I mean, regardless of the outcome of the game, like I said, the amount of time and effort that it took to get into. I know that the goal was to raise $5,000, and there were stats that Mr. Walmer said during the game or during the convocation that 13 million lives have been saved over the course of the last 10 years, due to cancer research and things like that. The amount of students and faculty that has been affected by cancer, loved ones or whoever that and I think just about everyone raised their hands. So it's something that's at the forefront of everybody's thinking. It's a nasty word, and certainly nobody wants to go through that stuff. But when you got stuff like this happening, I'd love to see that spread all over the media and the newspapers, and it's basically people doing good things, and it just really warms your heart. We ended up raising, our student council in Wawasee raised, I think, between 6,000 and 7,000. Our goal was
over
5,
your goal.
So
Yes.
Great job to those guys who did that.
One of the things I was interested in too is that when I talked to several of the kids and several of the people, everybody that I talked to was so enthusiastic about participating in this and helping out. And, that is huge. What is it? You kind of get a feedback of it. Not only helps for the cancer, but it helps you yourself feel good about that.
Yeah, and I think, when you develop these lifelong values, when you go to Wawasee High School, you're going to get a full education. It's not just the books and it's not just the experiences, but it's the values in which we want people in our community to live by, and the examples that people have set in the community. You got to understand this is public education, but we're going well beyond the books, right here at Wawasee High School. So doing those types of things, sometimes, our record, we won 10 games, and there's a lot of people talking about basketball right now, but man, you sure wish stuff like this would just be blasted everywhere, social media, newspapers, and because those are things that stick with you far beyond, just your experiences in high school.
Yeah, and Coach, not to mention that was a huge night, but to top it all off, you guys got the win on the night, and it shows like people want to come not just for the games, but they came to support. But it also makes it so much more interesting when you guys win games, especially big NLC games against Concord. So my question was, does this kind of put you guys on a little bit of like a roadblock for NLC teams?
Well, I think we've established ourselves. Over the last couple of years, you're just not going to come in here and roll over us. And before I took over the program, everybody knows that it was rough. And really, honestly, the first 2 or 3 years, it was rough because, if you really want to get into it, the idea that, honestly, everybody wants to talk to me about style play. I hear that all the time about slowing the game down, holding the ball. But we just didn't have the horses to be able to play 50, 60 possessions. And the only way we stay in games is to reduce the possessions down into maybe a 30, play good defense and all that stuff. Well, the horses were always coming, right? They were always coming. We were just kind of developing them. We were working hard on their skills and all that stuff. And now you just don't see us do that very often anymore. Now, after saying that, there are a couple teams coming up that are unbelievably good, and we may have to, pull some stuff. But I think back when I remember the Northwood game 3 years ago when my first year here, Coach Aaron Wolf says, as soon as you guys get the skill, he goes, we're in trouble. And I know we haven't quite beaten them yet, but he knew what we were trying to do. And we made them switch defenses from a man-to-man to a zone. And it's been a long time coming, and it's been a long process. But I don't know if I would say we've arrived or we've kind of got over the hump just quite yet. But certainly when you get to double-digit wins, I think people in the conference, people in the community say, well, we must be doing something right. And again, you got to give credit to the coaching staff and the kids and how much work they put in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Coach, not to mention, but last night was a complete team effort. Stover had 16. Austin Miller had 16. Ethan Hardy had 15. And you guys overall had 20 steals as a team.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you, just not having to rely on one player now, because you finally are getting the 5-man starters that are really chipping in, and, of course, your bench players?
My coach told me in high school is confidence is continually successfully completing a task. So that means when you do something well over and over and over again, that's confidence. And it's hard for somebody to kind of break that confidence. So you're seeing, we talked at the beginning of the year, we got sophomores, inexperienced, whatever. But when you continually successfully do something, you start to gain confidence. You start to be like, hey, I can do this against anybody, or I can do this game in and game out. So, somebody like Jack Stover has been really consistent, 8 points, 6 rebounds. He's starting to gain some confidence to think that he can do that more often. And so, some people will say, well, the coach is ruining their confidence, or, the parents are ruining the confidence. That really, it's about finding something you can be successful in and continually doing that, doing it over and over again. Whether it's you on the radio, right. When you first started doing the radio, you may have been a little nervous.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Oh my gosh! Well, you continually, successfully call these basketball games. Now you have the confidence, like, hey, I'll take on any game, anytime, and I'll call a game. Well, the same thing goes, I think, for our team in the game of basketball, that we're starting to gain some confidence. We know what we're good at, and we got to stick to that and not venture away from what's made us successful.
Coach, I was just looking at the stats. I love that the last few games, the first quarter has been huge.
Yeah.
I don't have any trouble with my heart attacking me on the first quarter. And then after that, it's where is the defibrillator?
Yeah.
Speak to that. How do you get off to such a good start?
Well, I think we have a group of guys that are playing really, really well together. And, we were talking about this last night, and again from the fan standpoint, and why don't you do that the whole game? Why can't you do that from the opening tip all the way to the end? Well, it is so difficult to play with that sort of energy and effort. Think about all the steals we had. You're literally running up and down the court, like sprinting, and so like somebody like Austin Miller, who's extremely fast from one end to the other, he can do that for about a quarter, or maybe a quarter and a half, and then we start digging into our bench, and we're only going about 2 people into our bench. And so teams that, let's say down at Indianapolis Cathedral, who score 60, 70, 80 points a game, Northridge, there's one thing you have to have, and that's a really deep bench. And I think, we continue to develop our young guys. Ethan Carey's coming in and providing good, solid minutes, and Jaden Boyer. But we're just not quite deep enough to sustain that sort of pace of play. But it's really benefiting us to start the ball games, so we build a little bit of a lead, and then it's like we got to figure out, what we need to do to sustain that. Maybe it's substitution patterns a little bit earlier in games, so we're working on that. There's still some areas of improvement for us as a coaching staff as well.
Coach, final question for you tonight. I know we talked about it last night on the radio, but that last shot by Ray, you mentioned it briefly, but just maybe go a little bit deeper into that, what that meant for him, and just what the community, like just how they reacted. The whole student section just jumped up and down. The whole team, everybody just went crazy in the gym when he made that single shot.
Well, it's maybe not quite to the to the level of like Rudy,
right.
The movie, and but it is something like that, because you think about that movie, and I hadn't thought about this until 5 seconds ago, but you think about that movie and why you like that movie.
Yeah.
Well, everybody rooted for that guy. Why? Because his dream was to play for the Irish, right? And he worked and worked, and he got blasted and he got blasted and he got blasted, and he kept picking himself up and he kept getting after it. Well, that's Ray. That's Ray, and the attitude and the effort and his dream. I know I had him in class early in the school year, and I know we were kind of going around the room talking about it, and he said, my dream is to be on the basketball team. He wrote a little thing that the whole class did, and I read it, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, because we cut him last year and he didn't make the team. And I'm just thinking, I don't know about this, it put a little, it's just like he kind of got it at my heart there, my heartstrings. But I was thinking, I just thought it was virtually impossible for him to make the team. But the more I got to know him, the more I think he could be a valuable asset to our locker room. And honestly, his performance last night, I think, speaks volumes to why we kept him. And I am not talking about his shot that he hit at the end of the game. I'm talking about his performance in the locker room when I walked in. I told you earlier. Yeah. About him coaching up the team. Yep. And telling them exactly what we needed to do to win the game. I mean, I walk in and I just kind of backed off and said, you go, Ray. So I think that kind of solidified why we kept him, and his value to the team is amazing. And, Austin's averaging 16 points a game, and you think he gets all the maybe the newspaper headlines and people, he's our best player, but you don't see those things that happen behind the scenes in the huddles. And probably one of the reasons why we do the radio show is to fill people in on stuff like that. I mean, Ray's doing an amazing job. People love him, and his moment last night was, hitting that last second layup. That might have been his moment, and I was so glad to see him enjoying that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Coach. But we got to take a short break, and once we return, we're going to talk about tonight's game against Lakeland. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with more Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM, The Mix. Good morning and welcome back to Coach's Corner. Kaz, did you have a quick question before we left or no?
No, that's okay. I want to go ahead and talk about tonight's game.
So tonight we have a very good game against Lakeland. And Kaz, I don't know if you remember this or not.
Probably not.
Last year, this was the first game I actually called with you at Lakeland. Yes. Do you remember that?
Oh, no. Huh.
No?
That was too long ago. I mean, if it was yesterday, probably. I do remember last night's game, but that's about as far as the old man's memory can go.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to have another good game tonight. Coach, 3 games in 1 week. I know we talked about this a lot,
yeah.
but let's talk about the impact this has on your team. 3 back-to-back games basically in 1 week.
I know most coaches probably wouldn't say this, but I'm saying it. That game last night was so good for us. We came out, we executed almost to perfection in the first quarter. We hit a slip screen right off the bat, which we wanted to do against Concord because they switched those our pin down screens. So, we executed very well. We were very patient. We were very strategic, in that first quarter. But it was not easy. Concord did not make it easy. It was a very physical game. It was a very intense game. It was a very physical game. Concord brought it. And anytime you play in the NLC, it's going to be a tough game. And so we got up a little bit. We got up by 18 or 20. They went on a 12-0 run and cut it to 6, but we did not get rattled. And so I think for what we've been trying to talk to the kids about this week is playing 3 games in a week would be similar to what you have to do in a sectional. In a sectional, in my coaching career, I think in 12 years, I played in, I think 6 sectional championships in 12 years. So about half the time I've actually competed for a sectional championship. But I know the amount of energy it takes to win on a Friday night of a sectional is amazing. You leave it all on the floor. And if you win, it's all gone. What you have to do in some way, shape, or form is to recover very quickly to win a championship. You got to come back in the morning and you're sore. You're excited, but you're sore, and the energy's all gone. You got to find a way to regroup and get your second win for that Saturday night game. Well, guess what? We left it all on the floor last night, and we're going to have to find a way tonight to kind of reclaim that energy somewhere deep down inside of us, because that's what you have to do to win a sectional championship, and we have visions of doing that.
One of the things I was really impressed with is the ability of like Hardy and Miller and those guys to be such good camaraderie team players with the other team. Somebody would kill somebody like in rugby basketball, and they'd help them up. And there was not this, even though it was a very physical game, it wasn't a mean physical game. It was just, hey, this is rugby basketball at its finest. And the team, I think, has really, really progressed and not getting upset and not getting mad and going to the next level.
Last night we were tested a little bit because I thought they went there's a fine line. There's a gray area, and you'd never, ever want to cross the line. You never want to cross the line. And I don't think Concord crossed that line. But I thought they were getting awfully close, especially towards the end of the game. The referees had to stop and bring everybody together. I called timeout specifically to talk to our team, say, hey, do not let these guys get at you like this. They're baiting us into doing something stupid. And just really proud of our guys to stay poised. And, you could see Austin out there a little bit kind of going, well, he's the one, I said, no, they're going to keep doing that until we lose our cool. And we didn't do that. And the same thing happened at Plymouth just a little bit, where we played 2 very physical, very tough. The headlines in the Pilot News over in Plymouth said that they're something to the effect, I'm not going to say it right, but there was a backyard fight in Plymouth, and an NLC game broke out.
That's about what it's like every single NLC game. Though.
So it's going to be physical. We knew it'd be physical last night, and a lot of banging going on, a lot of bodies flying every which way, and so it's one of those things where what a perfect game for us to really leave it all on the floor last night. We did. There's no question. Now the challenge is, can you do it 3 times in a week?
Yeah.
Can you do it on back-to-back nights? And so that's what we're going to be talking to the kids about here in a little while. About, hey, great job. It was awesome. You left it all out there. You played your tails off. Guess what? You got to do it again.
Yeah.
And so if we don't come out victorious tonight, we don't go home. That's good, right? Because in sectional play, if you can't quite bring it, your season ends.
Yeah.
And so this is a trial run, 3 games in a week. With last night being super physical and a lot of energy being poured out on the floor, it's going to be interesting to see. Honestly, I can't sit here and tell you that we're going to do it for sure, but it's going to be interesting to see if we can get back at it tonight.
Yeah, and coming in tonight, Lakeland's 6-8, but last night they just beat Garrett by 20 points. And as you mentioned, Bontrager, we've seen him all year, ever since I think he started freshman year, if I'm not mistaken. He is a phenomenal player. He's big. He's going to get physical, and it's probably going to be a brawl, as you talked about with him. And so let's just talk about how you're going to stop him and what's your mindset to not overlook Lakeland.
Well, we're not going to. I know that for sure. Bontrager just scored his 1,000th point last night against Garrett. And he's a junior. I'm telling you, I had a teammate in high school that scored 1,000 points, and I thought, man, that is just an unbelievable high school feat to be able to score that many points. And it takes a lot of things going right, sickness and health and all that stuff, your teammates. So, for him to score 1,000 points and he's only a junior, he's got a chance to be the all-time leading scorer at Lakeland. Well, guess what? His brother currently holds the all-time scoring leader mark. So, we're not going to stop him tonight. We are not. He's unstoppable. He's unstoppable. We just need to make sure that he doesn't go way off. And so it's kind of like Reichert. We weren't going to stop Reichert either from Plymouth, but we did hold him to 16. He didn't have 32. He had 16.
Yeah, right.
And so Bontrager tonight is going to score. He is a scorer, and he knows how to score. And so we got no chance at stopping him like we did like Beck Willems, on Monday, or some other players throughout the year. So it's about, doing the best we can on him, limiting his touches, and maybe if he could take 12 shots and score 16 or 18 points rather than taking 15 shots and scoring 35 points, that would absolutely destroy us. We have to really be focused on the other 4 players, who are all skilled basketball players. So they're looking for a signature win, and tonight would be a signature win for them. I think they'll come in fired up.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are 10-5, one of the best starts you guys have had in a while, and you guys just want to keep the steam going. And as Coach Kaz and I have talked about, you guys have been able to do that. But 3 games in a week in Lakeland coming, but it's at home. So you guys get another home game. Talk about what it means to be playing at home, 3 games in 1 week.
I hope people are liking coming out and watching us. I think we got, of our 22 games, I think maybe 13 or 14 are at home, So I hope the people in the community are really enjoying this and they're coming out. I've heard a lot of good things. But, if you're catching this on the radio and driving around or at home or whatever, I would really encourage you to come out and watch these guys play, because this isn't going to last forever. Look, we're a month away, or whatever, 3 weeks from sectional time, and I think we only got 3 home games left tonight and 2 more. So this isn't going to last forever. And I tell you, the way these guys are playing and just pouring their heart and soul out onto the floor, in my opinion, is really, really fun to watch. It's fun basketball. The games have been close, like you said, and so we're going to try to keep it rolling tonight, but 1 game at a time. That's cliche-ish, but we're focused on seeing if we can come out with the same energy tonight as we had in the last couple games.
You really hit the head on the nail there. I really think that the vans have really contributed a lot. Last night the student section and the parent section, the stands just made I thought a huge difference in the amount of energy that the team can sustain. And so, man, if you can get a chance, come out tonight and watch them. This is a great group of kids to watch.
It is, and I'll tell you one thing. This is really important, really important. If you want to establish a program with sustainable success, you have to bring in the parents and the younger kids, that you have in like your youth program, because, I'm a dad, right? And I go home and I talk about Ethan Hardy, and I say, son, if you could play like that with that amount of energy and that amount of passion, and they're looking at you going like this. Well, I got a text from a youth league player saying the same thing. And I told him, I'm a dad too. I say the same things at my house, and so when these young players come to the game, they see our locker room with carpet and lights and games and things like that. I certainly am not afraid to say out loud that I have to recruit to sustain success in the Wawasee basketball program. I don't recruit outside of our school district. That's illegal. But I do recruit our own athletes within our own school system. So when I see little kids and the junior warriors and their uniforms, and they're coming down into the locker room and they're experiencing this with us, in my opinion, that's going to make them want to be Wawasee Warrior basketball players down the road. And so that is a key component to being good year in and year out. And so not only do we owe these guys a debt of gratitude, right now, the seniors that are playing and the guys that are playing right now, but I think down the road, and Ben Hoffert, Josh Slayball, and Aaron Evans, and all the guys that have played in the past 3 or 4 years have been building towards this. And there's certainly, Keaton Dukes was a 6th grader when I first got here. And he was here watching the games and getting excited, when we beat Whitcove 3 years ago at home in double overtime. So
Wow.
that stuff really snowballs, and it's really important to our program, what's going on right now.
Yeah, and Coach, not to mention, you do a phenomenal job. You brought something that hasn't been in the Wawasee program. You built the younger kids. You have the Junior Warrior program, and just everybody's able to get a part of it. You guys, you have your players go down there, your coaches, and I just want to say, you do a great job, and it's always an honor. And Coach, you have your final thoughts because we have a couple minutes left in the segment.
Geez, that's it. I mean, we're having so much fun.
I know.
Brad.
It's so
He's going
good.
to cut us off. There he goes again.
I'll get some coffee and we can just go ahead and continue.
Yeah, he's
got
always got
practice
to
at
cut
10
it.
o'clock.
I know. He's cutting us off. No, final thoughts. I think we got Northridge coming up. We got Lakeland tonight. Our Junior Warriors, are involved in Club 1. We got 2 teams per grade, grades 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 and 8. So there's we actually host this weekend. Our assistant coaches are doing an amazing job, and so I'm just a small part of what's going on here. Coach O'Connell, Coach Fred's is taking over the Club 1 Travel League stuff and organizing the teams and getting the change ready, the money and everything that goes in. You just, people would be amazed how much stuff's going on. I definitely don't do this alone, and a lot of people see the product that we're putting out on the floor, but there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes. And if it wasn't for our assistant coaches and the parents and the helpers and all the volunteers that go into this, it is one massive big ball of success right now, and hopefully we can keep it going tonight against Lakeland.
Yeah, absolutely, Coach. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have tonight. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we're going to take a short break. And coming up next, we have the JV coach, Derek Coy. So we'll be right back with more Wawasee Warrior basketball on 93.7 FM, The Mix. Good morning and welcome back to Coach's Corner. We are now joined by the JV coach, Derek Coy. And Coach Coy, your role is a JV coach, so you are the stepping stone to the varsity level. But a lot of people still get to see your players play. So just talk about what your role is and how you take it and how your players react with you.
Yeah, so like you said, my role is kind of a stepping stone. And number one, our job as a JV team is to support what the varsity's doing. So whether it's playing hard in practice to get them ready for the big games, or whether it's to come out and develop certain players in certain ways, we're doing whatever we can to support what Coach Everingham and Coach O'Connell doing at the varsity level. So yeah, we support, we prop up, we do everything we can to push them to be as good as they possibly can be, and then develop our own players.
And you guys are, sorry, go ahead.
No, just give me a little bit about your background. I mean, how'd you get going in basketball? And
yeah, so
where are you from?
It's a little bit different because I actually didn't really play. I mean, I played basketball growing up, but I didn't play in high school or anything like that. So I am huge into sports. I'm a youth pastor by trade at Vineyard Church up there by the middle school. And I have a son who is 12, and that's really what got me into coaching was when Coach Everingham moved into this community before he even got a job at Wawasee. He was helping with our junior program. Him and I got to know each other really well. Had a friendship, and then once he took over here at Wawasee, he's like, "Hey, I want you to be a part of it in some way." And I was like, "Really? I'm not a basketball guy. Why do you want me to be a part of it?" So yeah, it's been great. So I've been on staff ever since he came on. So
yeah, and you guys are 10-3, and so far you guys have had a very successful season. You guys have had a couple struggles, But you guys have made a little bit of a change to the roster, and one player I've really noticed that has been sticking out is Carr Reinhardt.
Well, yeah, Carr somebody. So he's a junior playing JV. It's not typically somebody's dream to be playing JV as a junior, but he's really taken it in stride. He's had a great attitude, and he knows his goal is to be a varsity basketball player. And for him to be a varsity basketball player, he needs to be on the JV this year to really just develop some of his stuff. And he has really stepped up. So a couple of the losses that we took, it's because we were forced into a pace that we didn't like, and we turned over the ball a lot under pressure. So I think back to Northwood, and we were able to bring Carr in, and he handled the pressure really well. And so he knows he's not going to come in, and we don't expect him to light up the scoreboard, but he's going to take care of the ball, and he's going to distribute and do the things that we need him to do. So he's really impressed me with his attitude. Him and Adam Beer are really our leaders on and off the floor. They hold the guys accountable. They're coaching on the floor, doing stuff that we're not necessarily doing on the floor.
One of the things I was impressed with too is you're bringing the foreign exchange student in.
Yeah,
the Kant boy. I mean, that Kant can do it, and he's a senior. Give me the history of that. How does that work?
So I don't know the
really
whole
neat
backstory of how he came to Wawasee, but he's actually never really played organized basketball before. They have like a club basketball that they play after school, but he's like, when we play games, there's like 5 to 6 parents there maybe. So the first game when we were over at Fairfield, we were in the auxiliary gym, and there were a couple hundred people there, but he was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" And then we go into the varsity game, and it's a crazy atmosphere. And it's like nothing he's experienced. So I've been crazy impressed at him, So not only the language barrier, but he has hearing issues as well. So he has really just shined as one of our like core players on the JV level. And I anticipate he'll get into some varsity games. He got in a little bit last night, but he's a hustler. He'll do exactly what you ask, and he'll work hard and just really work his butt off.
Now, what's he want to do? Moving on, do you have any idea?
Yeah, I really have no clue. So I know he's gonna miss this basketball atmosphere when he goes back for sure. But I don't know what his long-term plans are, to be honest with you.
And Coach, I know you guys are the JV, so you guys don't necessarily get the spotlight on you guys, and you don't get to run plays, practice your plays. You guys are what we like in football. I play football is what we like to call the scout team.
Yep.
So you run the other team's plays. The varsity can see that, and just talk about what that how that affects you or helps you guys, since you guys are all a team together. You guys come together and get the work done.
Yeah, so it has been a struggle once in a while because we're the second and third team, and we are running against the varsity all the time, and so we don't get to necessarily work on the things that we would individually like to work on as a JV team. But the advantage to that is when we're running the other team's plays all week is we know what they're going to bring most likely, because the JV typically will do exactly what the varsity does or similar, so we'll know what they're going to try to do, scouting reports and stuff like that. It kind of trickles down, and we typically know what they're going to do. But it's the guys get it. They know that their job is to push the varsity to get as good as they possibly can. And somebody I think of would be Ray. So Ray is typically on that scout team. He knows he's probably not going to get a lot of varsity minutes, but he's the first guy up on the bench. He's the first guy that's going to be congratulating, and I was smiling a little bit when he got that layup last night for sure.
Coach, one of the things I kind of interested in is how do you decide who moves on, who stays at JV? I mean, at the end of the year,
well, that's actually
coaches got to get together and make some really
That's
tough
actually
decisions.
really easy because it's all up to Coach Everingham and Coach O'Connell. So they tell me who I have for how many quarters. But this year has been a little bit different. Last year we were juggling guys around a lot. I think of Keaton Dukes. I had him for the first part of the season. He quickly moved up. Ethan Carey, I had Cam Salazar for a little bit last year. So we were constantly moving guys around. So one of the advantages this year has been we've had pretty much our core group of guys all year. So we are going to have to start watching quarters with a couple guys. I think of like Colin Roberson, who's a freshman. He's been doing an absolutely just phenomenal job for us. He's a great kid, going to do exactly what you ask him to do. But for the most part, our core guys have been there all year, and it's nice to be able to build that camaraderie, kind of build our own DNA a little bit. Kind of our DNA a little bit is to pressure the ball, get some easy turnovers, and we're just going to pound the ball inside. And so it's been good for us not having to juggle guys around, but in my opinion, a successful JV team, you're going to be shuffling some guys around because that means your guys are developing and doing what you should do.
Yeah, and this is the first year since Coach Everingham's probably been here, that you really have a core group of starters. You have your varsity players, and then you have your JV players. But you talked about Colin Robertson. He is probably going to take over Ethan Hardy's role next year. So how do you build him into somebody of the caliber of Ethan Hardy?
Well, one of the first things I did this year was I told Ethan Hardy, you need to take Colin under your wing.
Wow.
And so he's done that pretty well. There's some things that I honestly would like to see him do a little bit better. But I remember, so when I first came on, I was coaching freshmen, and that would have been this senior class's freshman year. And I remember Ethan being a lot like Colin. And I'm like, Ethan, just think of what it would have meant to you had somebody taken you under their wing, and really just showed you the ropes. And, so Colin, the things that he needs to get better at is just, learning one or two moves, taking his time. Physicality is a whole different level once you move into a varsity basketball game.
Man.
So that's one of the things that I've really been working with, or trying to get Ethan to work with Colin on, is just the toughness, being able to handle the contact, being able to, be strong with the ball, stuff like that. So Ethan's done a great job of doing that. So Colin, he's a workhorse as well. So I know for a fact that he's going to work hard this summer. He's going to get where he needs to be. But we've got some other guys too that could potentially fill in that role. I mean, I think of Mason Possell. Gavin Hunziker has been playing great for us. He had a little rough start to this season, but he has absolutely, if I think in terms of physicality and hustle, he has absolutely just gone to another gear the last couple of games, and he's been just really impressive with his attitude. Caden Welty's another one who, he got hurt. When Ethan Carey came back, it kind of shuffled him around a little bit, and he's handled that all in stride, and it's been good. So.
And Coach, another question for you. Talk about your varsity and JV. Most sports there's normally that line, like your JV and varsity per se. I mean, I don't know how it is, but is there that line, or is it all we're just one team together? You help us win games, and we'll help you guys type thing.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that Coach Everingham has done great. Is it's all just one. It's like a family. It's one big family, and yeah, some guys might dress varsity one game, and they might not the next. But we all know that our goal is to get the varsity to the top level that they can get to, and help them succeed, help them get wins. And that's going to make us better as a JV program. The more that we push the varsity, the more we work hard in practice to make the varsity better, it's going to make us that much better as well.
Coach, do you watch the freshmen coming up, and you think a little bit about next year? Well, these kids are going to move on. This is my next group coming in. Talk a little bit about that. How does that work?
Yeah, so Coach Wilson and I are communicating all the time with the freshmen, because we usually dress 3 or 4 freshmen, and so him and I kind of decide who's going to dress and who's been kind of earning that right to kind of dress. They're not getting a ton of playing time once they come up with us. But yeah, so I'll go and I'll watch a freshman game, and it's kind of a different scenario because I've also been working with the junior program since, well, even before I came on staff. So when Coach Everingham was here 5 years ago, running our junior program, I kind of dove in and helped him with that stuff. So I've been watching all the guys. I think Keaton Duke's class is the first class that we really had a hand in when they were 6th graders. So I've been able to see, from his class under, working their way up through. So we've kind of had a hand, and we kind of have our eyes on, who could potentially be a varsity basketball player. And, a lot changes between the time they're in 3rd grade to the time they're sophomores and freshmen. But, so we really having a huge part in the development program, which is, I think we have one of the best, youth programs around as far as the in-house league that we do, the Club 1 stuff that we do. So I've got a little bit of an advantage point because I've seen these guys play for a lot of years now.
I was watching the freshman practice the other day. I was taking my granddaughter to gymnastics, and they were practicing. And I like watching Wilson coach. I told him, I said, Wilson, I didn't think you'd be that good at this level. And he looked at me because I had him in class and coached him, and he said, well, Wilson went on. But I think he is a great coach, and the kids, man, they worked really hard.
Yeah, he really is a great fit for that freshman spot. So the last few years, or the last couple years, we've had Chad Hoffer there, and he's moved down to kind of be our middle school coordinator, overseeing, all of middle school. And Chad really has his hand in the 7th and 8th grade right now, which actually they end their season today up at the conference tournament. So we've got a chance there to do a little bit of damage. But Wilson has been great. He's, last year he was coaching the 6th grade team. He came up, and he's great with the kids, and they really do want to work hard for him. They trust him a lot. So it's been great to watch him succeed.
Yeah, and final question for you, Coach Coy. We have sectionals coming up. I know it's not something you like to talk about, but it's only 13-man roster. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So Do you have a say in that picking, or is it more Coach O'Connell and Coach Everingham?
It's mainly Coach O'Connell and Coach Everingham, but we all kind of have a say. So I think you can only officially have 12 in your official roster, but you can dress up to like 14 or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the numbers are. So we'll have to kind of put our heads together and kind of figure out exactly who that is. We have had some different guys dressing here and there varsity, and some guys that are interchangeable. So most likely what I would see is the guys that can maybe come in and get a defensive stop, somebody who's going to be able to come in and not be a liability on the floor. Those are going to be the guys. So I think it would probably be somebody like an Adam Beer or something like that, who's real physical, real athletic, can come in, play some solid defense. It's kind of a team effort, but it's really those two guys have the final say.
Yeah, and once again, that's Coach Coy. Coach, unfortunately, out of time. Come tonight. The game starts at 6:15 to watch Coach Coy in action, and of course the JV Warriors. And while you're at it, stay for the varsity game. It's going to be a great game tonight. But this is Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM, The Mix.